Black Lives Matter at Denver City Council. Hello everyone, it's a beautiful day in Denver, and I happen to know that right across from the Denver Capitol building, over here at the City Council building, there's going to be a Black Lives Matter protest today, and I'm going to film it for you all and see what they're all about.
A very important event. This is an important gathering, and as we begin this, we expect more people will show up. So my name is Alex Landau. I'm with the Denver Justice Project. Thank you. I have my colleague with me, Vinny Cervantes. He's going to help me navigate some of the spoken components of this particular part of the demonstration. Just before we get started, so what we're doing here tonight, I want to give you a little backdrop on why we're here. This is the City and County building, and this evening we have City Council voting on some of the language that the Denver Justice Project and Councilman Lopez and other folks in the community have been involved in developing. And if this is successful, if we get enough votes, this will navigate this language to the ballot. And what that language is an effort to strengthen the Independent Monitor's office. The Independent Monitor is currently the only independent entity responsible and also who is involved in the process of police oversight, law enforcement oversight, uniformed personnel oversight, in cases of misconduct around procedural violations. So that is our voice when Internal Affairs is navigating these processes. It is currently an ordinance. And what that means as an ordinance is that it would be very easy for a mayor or a future mayor to do away with this office with little to no community input. So what we're doing here tonight is another effort at strengthening this office by putting it into the Denver City Charter. So we appreciate everybody coming out this evening in support of this. And if anybody wants to sign up and speak on behalf of this effort, you can sign up in room 451 between 5 and 5:30. So we would encourage folks who may be out here for the demonstration but would also like to have their voices heard inside to make their way through security at some point between 5 and 5:30 to ensure you get a space. So a little bit more about the Denver Justice Project. Just to sum it up, we are working to transform patterns and practices in the culture of law enforcement. We are working to end mass incarceration, and we are seeking racial justice by doing that. So I want to bring my colleague Vinny up here so he can give you a little perspective from his lens about why we need to strengthen this office.
So ultimately, all right, Vinny, how many of us trust the police to police themselves by show of hands? Not one person, right? As we've seen recently, as we've seen recently in the case of Deanna Vila, we cannot trust the DA or the police to police themselves and hold themselves accountable. Yeah. So the Office of the Independent Monitor is the only independent oversight we have of this city in terms of breaches of law enforcement, cases of brutality, and cases where they literally kill people on the street and exercise extrajudicial privilege. So, well, okay, so for this event tonight though, if you are using social media, our hashtag is Denver Deserves Justice. Also, if we could have everybody wave the red little, yes. Please wave that in agreement because we want City Council to know that we as the community want continued independent oversight. We also are demanding justice and action on behalf of the community in Denver and on behalf of citizens of Colorado who have been decidedly disenfranchised by our police and by our law enforcement and by our criminal justice system. Right now, that's all.
So one thing to keep in mind, we do have a couple of sign-in sheets floating around. Please sign those. The real information we're looking for, not so much a phone number, but definitely a name and an email. And some other things to keep in mind. The independent consulting firms that Mayor Hancock hired to bring out here to assess the Denver County Jail and the Denver Detention Center that we spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on page 177 highlight that this office, the Independent Monitor's office, out of 200 some pages of recommendations and procedural change, they highlighted that this office go in the charter. If this office makes it into the charter, it won't cost us as taxpayers any additional finances. It'll just offer us additional security that the only independent body will actually have a solidified position in the Denver City Charter. So we also have a few speakers this evening that we'd like to call up so they can speak to you on behalf of their own individual perspectives as to why this is important and why this is a step towards law enforcement transformation and accountability. Because we cannot expect folks who have been indoctrinated to practice and think in a particular way to do this by themselves.
So first we have Lisa Calderon. Everybody can give her a hand.
I'm Lisa Calderon. Can you hear me?
Yes.
No?
No.
I am the co-chair of the Colorado Latino Forum Denver chapter. A couple of weeks ago, Mayor Michael Hancock stood up before the public and said that the Denver Police Department is a model of police reform. National model for police reform. I would say, no, Mr. Mayor, Denver is not a model of police reform.
That's right.
When we stop having unarmed civilians killed by Denver Police Department, it may be a model for the nation. When we stop having people killed who are in a mental health crisis, maybe we will be a national model. When we stop having people killed at a funeral home, maybe we'll be a national model. When we stop having people killed who are surrendering to the police with their hands up, maybe we'll be a national model.
Yes, thank you.
When we stop promoting officers who kill unarmed civilians, maybe, Mr. Mayor, we will be a national model.
Yes.
Woo! Yeah. 13 years ago, a young man, Paul Childs, was killed by Denver Police Department. He was mentally disabled. His family called for help. Many of you remember that. And that sparked our quest for justice, for an independent monitor, so that the police do not police themselves.
Yeah.
That's how we got to where we are today. Community fought for it. Nobody gives us anything. We have to fight for it.
Yes.
And that's what we're here to do today.
Woo!
Yeah. So we stand here in support of strengthening the Office of the Independent Monitor. It is a step forward toward eventual independence from under the city of Denver in terms of the mayor. But we have to keep the fight up. Change is incremental. And so let's go in there and show our support for independent oversight and also for the community voice to constantly be represented in these efforts. So thank you very much.
Can we get another hand for Lisa? So now we're going to have Andy Coco from Surge.
I wrote down my remarks because I'm not as beautiful of a speaker as some of the folks who have been up here today. What we know about the history and current state of policing in the U.S. is that policing has been and is meant to protect white wealth. I'm Andy Coco, and I'm with Showing Up for Racial Justice Denver chapter. We believe white people are vital to ending police brutality against our neighbors, halting mass incarceration of our family and friends, and destroying white supremacy. This means that violence against communities of color carried out by police is done so in the name of protecting me. I am not protected when my black and brown siblings are gunned down by tax-funded law enforcement, without trial, jury conviction, and death penalty assigned. We say not in our name. Showing Up for Racial Justice Denver chapter is thrilled to sign on to strengthening the Office of the Independent Monitor. Lisa Calderon is correct. We can be a national model. And may someday we not need strangers with guns to allegedly protect our communities. May someday we know how to support and connect with our neighbors, and may we stop believing in our need for punishing systems. And until then, we believe in showing up in solidarity and in leadership for reforms for police accountability. Tonight is one big move towards being a national model of true community care. Let's give a hand for Denver Justice Project, Councilman Lopez, for bringing police oversight to the ballot tonight. I'm so glad to see all these people here tonight. And if you're interested in joining a movement of people fighting for collective liberation, our next meeting is going to be August 25th at 6:30 p.m. Be sure you grab some of those red signs for flying in council chambers tonight. It's so important that you're here, and thank you.
One more hand for Andy. So now we will have the ACLU up here.
Nathan!
We have Nathan from the ACLU. Just want to say on behalf of the ACLU, thank you to everybody who's come out here tonight. The Office of the Independent Monitor is very important, but it's important that it actually be independent. And I think that the vote tonight is going to be an important one. We've seen what the nature of the concerns is with how police interact with communities. We all want that relationship to get better, not to get worse. But there were reasons that the ACLU called for Department of Justice investigation of Denver police 5 years ago in 2011. We have never rescinded that call, but what we have seen since then is when the Department of Justice has gone into cities and actually looked at what's going on. We saw their report on Ferguson. We saw last week their report on Baltimore, and I think you would find many of those same realities in almost any city in the country. I'm not saying that all cities are the same, I'm not saying it's exactly identical, but these are systemic issues across the country. They're not just in a couple of places, and it's not just a few bad apples. These are real issues that are across our whole system. So I want to recognize that there are some positive steps that have been taken and that are being taken. I think we should give credit where it's due for things like tracking police stops by race, moving forward on de-escalation training. These are good steps. They're steps in the right direction, but we need to see even more of this because we know that the underlying issues are systemic and widespread here in Denver as well as they are in Baltimore and other places. We want to see those issues really addressed, a bunch of senior improvement in all of these areas beyond even the steps that have already been taken, and one of the steps that will help will be this vote tonight around the Office of the Independent Monitor. So thank you for being here, and we hope to see further progress.
So let's give it up one more time for our speakers who came out in solidarity. Third, ACLU, Colorado, Denver Justice Project. These are also all organizations that have been focused on this work around strengthening the accountability measures that we have in the community. We know that having the Independent Monitor's Office in the Charter is not going to prevent people from being hurt or killed. Right? This is not a magic wand that we're waving. But what we are doing is we're taking exterior measures to ensure that there is a structure in place that does not favor uniformed personnel every time they go through it. And this is just one step towards many that we have to take in this walk to justice. So as 5 o'clock approaches, as we're coming up on 5 o'clock now, we would encourage folks to begin to maneuver inside, because it is critical that as many of us who want to speak in support of this effort sign up between the hours of 5 and 5:30, and we need as many folks as possible. We are also going to have folks outside continuing to circle, continuing to chant. However, we have to prioritize our efforts, and we as people need to now mobilize indoors. And we need to have our voices heard. That room, again, is going to be 450. 450 between 5 and 5:30 to sign up to speak. We would encourage everybody out here who has the ability to do so and who feels comfortable using their voice on this platform to please maneuver inside and join us as we speak in favor of moving the Independent Monitor's office into the Denver City Charter. Thank you.